So I want to introduce you to two concepts in the Avid. One is called Toolsets and the other is called Workspaces. They're both very similar. Toolsets is basically just the kind of factory default version of Workspaces. And what a toolset is it's a layout of your system which can be completely customized by you to work best for you, so that each time you're doing a certain task in the editing system, that your layout accommodates that task. To point out kind of some of those, right now I've got the source record editing tool set. This is kind of how I've got my system laid out to be able to do source record editing. If I wanted to, like I don't like all this black space down here and I wanted my source record monitors to be bigger, I can reposition my tools around a little bit, drag this out a little bigger, and then I can go back to tool sets and say save current. And now if I go to my color correction tool set, I click here and you can see I have my color correction here. I've got a timeline. Notice in my timeline, I just want to point out a couple of things because I've done something called linking. You can link other settings like your keyboard settings, your timeline settings, your bin settings. You can link those settings by name to one of these tool sets, and I've done that. For example, notice that my timeline is in the color correction view mode. I also have a source record view and an audio view for my timeline, and when I called up the color correction tool set, it also called up my color correction timeline, which looks different than, for example, let me show you my source record. Notice that it has all my effects icons in here, and on my color correction view I didn't want to have those on there, so I turned them off. So that's something that you can do. Also, the other thing that you may notice that's different, if I go to my keyboard settings, my keyboard setting is now activated to have just my keyboard for color correction. So these are all the little icons I need for color correction, you know, JKL play, but I also have all my video tracks up here. So from my keyboard, using the 1, 2, 3 buttons, I can enable each video track. I can jump to my color correction buckets. You can store a color correction, and just by hitting the F1 key, for example, I can recall that color correction and put it on another shot. So basically this keyboard is set up specifically just to do color correction, and when I launch the color correction tool set, my keyboard actually changes right along with everything else. And it also works for bins. I also have an effects editing tool set, and this automatically shows my effects in my project setting, and it calls up my effects editor, and it goes into a specific timeline that shows my effects icons in the timeline. I can also switch to audio editing. When you're audio editing, you don't even have to look at video. You can actually minimize this, so all that's left are the controls, and you don't actually even have to see the video. My timeline setting for audio came up, which gave me the ability to rubber band. It shrunk my video track very small because I'm doing audio. And notice also, I remapped my timecode track between video and audio. You can just hold down Option and drag it right up, and now my timecode track separates my video from my audio, so it's easier for me to figure out where those tracks are. You'll notice the audio mixer comes up, the audio tool comes up, the audio suite window comes up. All these things are automatically things that I want when I do audio editing, and all I had to do to jump to any of them is simply choose it from the main toolset menu. As I go to source record editing mode, originally there was a lot more black down here. If I wanted to, I could also move my timeline up and stretch it out a little bit more, and then I can save current. Now I go to color correction mode, and when I come back to source record editing mode, you'll notice that there's no more black in the middle. So that's how you can save and change settings. You can save these any way you want. If you want to link specific settings to a tool set, you choose link to, and then you get this no links, link named setting, link unnamed setting. I chose to link named setting. I actually named my timeline, and any settings that I called source record, those settings will automatically be changed when I go into this specific tool set. Workspaces are very similar. Basically, it's the same as a tool set. You can change things around. The interesting thing is you can map these workspaces to your keyboard. So with a touch of a button, instead of having to go into the settings menu, you can change that. Let me show you how to do that really quickly. If I go into one of my keyboard settings, hit Command 3 to call up my command palette, and go to More. There it is. These are workspaces. You can map 8 different workspaces anywhere to your keyboard or to your UI, anywhere you want them. And you can see that I have Workspace 1 and Workspace 2 mapped to F3 and F4. So let's see how those work. So all I have to do is hit the F3 button or the F4 button, and my UI changes between one timeline and another timeline. You can have them be whatever you want. So that's a little bit about customizing your workspace, customizing your tool sets so that you get the most out of your editing system and that your editing system is giving you exactly what you want when you want it.